Hey everybody, welcome to SwJ. Today we are working on my 20 plus year old pair of jeans. We're continuing where we left off and putting in a patch on the thigh, a little strip of camouflage, pronounced by the Americans as camouflage. Crazy Americans. And we're going to be talking about a couple of nature stories today. One involving Mexican fish and one involving shepherds in Italy. And Spain. So yeah, the jeans had a thigh hole, have a thigh hole, and I'm working on patching that with a little strip of camel material. And pinned it in last episode and got it started. We're going to continue on. And Mexican fish. With a catchy name, the tequila fish has been reintroduced to Mexican waters. Now, why is this important? Because it shows that conservation works. Yes, the tequila fish is a very the word they used in the article was drab. I was trying to find something else in my bank of synonyms and it just wasn't there. A very drab looking, roughly 7 centimeter long fish. Why is it important that it continues? So that we can prove that we can continue or can save these species, and they do benefit their environments. So they went from, in 1998 they had 10 in captivity, and they did selective crossbreeding, and there is now a population of 10,000. So from 10 to 10,000. And they have released 1,500 of them into the wild. The other interesting part about this story, and I think the bigger point of this, is that they were able to recreate a wild environment in order to expose these fish to predators and to parasites and to drought conditions and everything that they would face in the wild when they were released. That's the one thing that I've always thought was lacking, because you breed all these fish in aquariums where there's an ideal environment and everything's perfect and life is good and it's good, but then when you introduce them to the wild, they go up to the first predator fish and say, "Will you be my friend?" and they get eaten. So that's not a good thing. And then these fish that you've spent, since '98, so decades, reproducing and putting your life's work into, all of a sudden they get eaten. So there has to be a way to prevent that, and the way that they did that was they built a very large, very large scale aquarium where they could introduce other species and have them schooling and moving around a lot, and everything that they would normally be doing in the wild. And they did it just in a slightly more controlled environment. Parasites were released, and they were able to weed out the fish that were weak to parasites, and I guess the slow ones got eaten by the predator fish in the tanks, and just everything that you need to have natural selection make a species stronger. So if you can provide all that in an artificial environment, then your species have a much better chance of surviving. That's the part that I found very interesting about this story. great thing that I do. You know, I get to those points, the interesting points last. So I'm just going to call it a reward for my listeners that are actually dedicated to hearing everything I have to say. And you can get past the drab 7 centimeter long fish and get to the good stuff. You know, it's the conservation efforts, it's the ability to do this sort of thing, so that when we do, pardon me, when we do have species that are more vital, that we know how to conserve and reintroduce them to the wild. That's, I think, the most important part of this whole story here. Not that the tequila fish isn't important, you know, any fish that makes alcohol, you know, it's gotta be important, you know, like people seem to like alcohol, so they should like the tequila fish. Not that it makes tequila, I know, being funny, it's rare for me. Another reason I appreciate my viewership so much. But yeah, the fact that they would actually like introduce drought situations, you know, where they had limited oxygen, limited area, you know, to live. And they had to figure out how to do that, because it's all stuff that they would face in the wild. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Now the other wild story that we have, comes out of Italy and Spain, but the focus of the article was on Italy. And they're using shepherds and grazing animals to prevent forest fires. They had apparently a very bad forest fire go through a few years ago, I think it was, and they finally realized that they need to control the underbrush somehow. So they are hiring shepherds with herds, and those herds are specifically to go into go into and maintain areas so that they won't have massive forest fire like that, and that it would be more able to be controlled, because sheep, you know, if they are using, well, they are using sheep, but you know, grazing animals really keep the grasses and everything down, all the brushes and everything. And I think that's a fantastic idea. Like, our ancestors did things right, you know, like, I don't know if they purposely grazed out areas with the intention of stopping forest fires. I doubt it. But it worked, and they're introducing it again, so I think that's pretty amazing. The other thing is that some of the natural, oh, what's the right word here? Some of the animals that were native to that land that would graze have gone extinct. That's the other unfortunate part. So there's a couple of different types of deer that used to inhabit that area, and they no longer exist. So the deer would have helped to keep the combustibles down in those areas, and now the domesticated animals have to come in and kind of fill that gap. So people have to figure out how to repair the damage they've done. And by reintroducing shepherds, hey, why not? That's seems like a pretty awesome way to do it. Provide some employment, and I think interesting employment, being a shepherd. I watched Clarkson's Farm. I don't know if anyone else has seen that, but Jeremy Clarkson trying to farm his own land, and all the trials and tribulations, and there was a shepherd on there. And interesting job, very demanding. It has to basically be your life, because you have a herd. That you have to tend to, and it's a 24-hour, 24/7 job, that's for sure. And there's not too many people out there that want to work a 24/7 job anymore, and especially something like that, because it's usually not very well paid. It's a lifestyle. It's not really, you don't. It's I can see where it would be very difficult to make a living as a shepherd. It's just the system isn't set up for how can I say this? The ag system isn't set up for the small farmer to succeed. And that's a sad reality. If you don't have thousands of hectares and a dozen children for slave labor, then it's hard to make it. And small farms these days, people aren't having as many kids. It's hard to keep stuff going when you don't have the manpower, and when you have to hire someone, that's what puts your farm under. Hiring help is expensive, and people just can't keep up on their own. They're up dawn till well after dark, and you just can't do it. So if we can bring back some of those careers and have some of the old ways coming back, and have people making a living like that because the government helps pay for it and recognizes the value of it, why not? I think that's fantastic news. Pull some pins on this one. We'll call that an episode. And I should note, the project in Italy is modeled after a project that is already enacted and successful in Spain, which I hadn't heard of. So hopefully this is new news to you, because it was to me. And thanks so much for joining me. I do really appreciate the time we get to spend together. And till next time, keep chillin'. Don't forget your cookie. Peace.